Welcome, wandering souls. Step into an explainer of my own masterful design. I am the Shadow Bard, and today, you're not just going to sit there and learn. No, you're going to witness the meticulous, calculated architecture of my glorious lies. We're diving right into how one actually subverts a dying myth and replaces it with an empire of absolute control. I'll be your guide through this little dark curriculum of ours. We're going to break down the pathetic illusions of the masses, and I'll show you exactly how I built a brand new reality right from their ashes. So, settle in, open your minds, and let's observe the blueprint of your own psychological surrender.
Let's set the stage, shall we? Picture a sprawling marketplace in a city that's just clinging desperately to the precipice, right on the very edge of what they call the whale's belly. There I stood, dead center in all their petty commerce. I raised a flickering lantern high into the heavens, and I cried out, "I seek the truth!" But here's the true irony, the real delicious theatricality of that moment. I sought absolutely no such thing. I raised that lantern in the broad daylight of high morning, not to actually find the truth, but to completely expose the absolute absurdity of their existence.
And honestly, what a pitiful existence it was. This wasn't some vibrant, thriving world. The sun up above, it was nothing but a pale, sickly disk, literally mocking me from the sky. I was standing on top of a fountain made of dry stone, a perfect monument to a world totally drained of its lifeblood. And gathering all around me were these colorful but tattered performers, actors, jugglers, street poets. They pointed their fingers, their faces twisted into these grotesque caricatures of mockery. They laughed at me, exactly like the marketplace fools laughed at Nietzsche's madman. To them, I was just some jester who'd lost his way in the light.
Act 1. The Death of the Heroic Ideal.
You see, those so-called heroic ideals, the very foundations of their grand songs, their comforting little stories, their pathetic moral compasses, they were already dead. They were rotting corpses. The heroes and gods they sang about had abandoned them a long time ago. The common folk, they're fools, but not because they lack truth. No, they're fools because they lack the courage to look at the decay right in front of their faces. They absolutely refused to see that the ship they were sailing on was already resting at the bottom of the ocean.
So why were these ideals dead? Well, think about the sacred canopy, that protective layer that once shielded their fragile souls from the terrifying void of existence. It had been utterly torn asunder by human cruelty. The fools in that marketplace were shivering. They were drifting in the dark in a world completely without anchors. And yet, they pretended they were still warm.
Now, this realization is what I call the gay science. It's the ecstatic realization that the old gods and heroes have just vanished into ash. And this is my specific heresy. It isn't born from some lack of intellect, like those laughing jugglers actually believed. It is a vital, stubborn rebellion against the herd's desperate, pathetic need for a ghost to follow. I looked into the ash, and you know what? I didn't feel despair. I felt the pure, ecstatic freedom of a blank canvas.
Act 2. The architecture of the lie. Because I realized the gods were just ash. I knew I didn't need to bring them a new morality. I certainly wasn't there to save their sinking ships. Instead, I'm completely free to operate as the architect of lies. I use subversion. I take the whole trope of the madman seeking truth, and I use their mockery of me as the very stage to establish my control. By actually calling their ideals rotting corpses, I'm using metaphor to violently strip away their false heroism. As an outsider who thrives on forbidden knowledge, I gladly take the dangerous risks of the other life. I don't fear the dark. I master it, proving for sure that my calculated lies are infinitely stronger than their fragile little truths.
But listen, the absolute most powerful tool in my arsenal is what I call the twisted word. This is the act of taking the terrifying chaos of their existence and turning it into a highly structured narrative of my own propaganda. By embracing this technique, I stop being just a mere witness to the tragedies of history. I step right out of the audience. Through the twisted word, I fill that vacuum they are so deeply terrified of, and I become history's supreme creator.
Just look at the contrast here. On one side, I take the pathetic death of their old reality, the rotting corpses, the torn canopy, those sinking ships drifting aimlessly in the dark. It's chaotic, it's decaying, it's weak. But on the other side, from that chaos, I forge creation, a structured narrative, runes of ash, a glorious empire. I take their uncertainty and their fear, and I build this cold, calculated, unyielding architecture. I give them exactly the structure they crave.
Act 3. The Violet Empire.
So the marketplace stage is set. I draw my instrument. I begin to play my viol. The strings are quite literally made of Treater's gut. And as my bow draws across them, they hum this discordant, deeply hypnotic tone that reverberates right through the dry stone of the square. And as those discordant notes echo, a thick gray mist from the trenches begins to seep over the cobblestones. It wraps right around their ankles. Then, the physical manifestations of my twisted word, these runes made entirely of ash and black smoke, they materialize in the air. They literally drift into the ears of the performers and the merchants. The propaganda just enters their minds, forcefully filling that massive vacuum left by their dead gods. It happens in stages. First, there's that mocking laughter. They really thought they were superior. But as the mist takes hold, that laughter gives way to drifting confusion. You can see their smiles falter as their anchors completely vanish. Then comes the blank, glassy-eyed acceptance. Their suffocating conformity is fully weaponized by my music. And finally, we reach the absolute inevitable conclusion to my performance, kneeling. Complete and utter submission to the architect. The climax of this conquest is deeply graphic and just perfectly absolute. I blow out the flickering lantern I was holding, and that pale, sickly disk of a sun up above, it seems to vanish entirely from their perception. In its place, the sprawling, decaying square is bathed in this strange, suffocating, artificial violet glow. It's the light emanating directly from my runes. The old world is completely overridden by my dark, Gothic design. Truth is a carcass, and I have dressed it in the silk of a new, glorious empire. Think about that for a second. In a world where the old sun has set forever, where the protective canopy is shredded to pieces, the only light remaining is the artificial violet light that I personally choose to kindle. I have taken the rotten corpse of their reality, and I've spun it into the immaculate silk of my own dominion. And so, I leave you, my focused learners, with this final thought. The old gods are ash. The play has truly begun, and I am the only one left holding a script. Look around your own world, your own canopies, your own comforting little lights. Are you absolutely certain they're real? Or are you already kneeling in the violet glow? Whose script are you following? Consider that very carefully before the gray mist reaches you.